Hello! Here's how you add ducking, also known as sidechaining in other applications, to OBS and slobs. But whichever you use, the settings will be the same. Basically, we use the input level of one of the audio sources to control the volume of a different audio source. You probably want that to be your mic controlling the volume of your desktop audio. Why do we want that? Well, this means your microphone will always be louder than anything that is playing on your desktop audio. The benefit of this is that you don't have to spend as much time fiddling with the volume of your game to get it just right to where both can be heard. You always want to prioritize your own voice being heard during a stream. Now let's look at how to do that in OBS. Step 1. Right-click the source of the audio you want to duck or sidechain, in my case desktop audio. Click Filters, and from the plus sign, add the compressor plugin that's built into OBS and slobs. Step 2. Now I want to add the source that you want to control the volume of the desktop audio. From the drop-down menu, select your microphone. Wow, that sounds so much better already. This might be enough for you with just the default settings. However, if you'd like to stick around, I'll be going into more detail about which of these settings does what. Or if you're busy and just want to see which settings I personally use and copy those, you can just skip to the end of the video. However, I do recommend sticking around because understanding how these settings work will help you understand why these things do what they do and will help you get just the results you personally want. Might sound technical, but it's actually very simple to understand even for a beginner. Well, depending on how well I explain it. We'll start with the second option here, the threshold, because this one will determine what effect the rest of the sliders will have. Here that means that above which volume do we want to trigger the ducking effect. Putting it at 0 decibels, in essence means that only if it goes above 0 decibels, hint, it can't, do we want the ducking to occur. This would mean it does nothing. If we pull the slider all the way down to -60, what's going to happen is, no matter what, every time you speak, the effect is going to trigger. Because as you can see here, OBS measures down to -60 decibels, and if any audio at all is playing, it will be above that. Let's now move up to ratio. Looking at this, our compressor here goes from a ratio of 1:1 all the way to 32:1. In essence, the first number means that for every decibel over the threshold we set above, the compressor will only allow 1 decibel more through. I have drawn a handy diagram here to explain it further. Here is the output level, -60 decibel to complete silence at 0 decibel, the loudest you're allowed to be. Everything above that will result in clipping, but we'll get into that at another time. In this example, I've set that threshold to be -30 decibel. For every decibel that volume goes above our threshold, the compressor will add 1 decibel. At a ratio of 1:1, for every decibel over the threshold, the compressor will add 1. The keen night viewers among us will notice that that means it's doing absolutely nothing. Now let's take a ratio of 4:1. This would mean that for every 4 decibels the sound volume is over the threshold, the compressor will only allow 1 additional decibel through. So if the volume is at 12 decibels over the threshold we set above, whenever you speak, it will trigger the ducking and reduce that volume to 3 decibels over the threshold, because 12 divided by 4 is 3. Going all the way to 32:1 is as good as infinity, and in practice makes it a hard limit and will make it so that any volume above the threshold will be completely reduced to it. Attack, represented in milliseconds, controls how long it will take for the ducking to start working once it crosses our threshold. I advise never leaving it at 0, because when it acts immediately, it's a pretty jarring contrast, and that doesn't sound very pleasing at all. The same thing is true for our next option, the release. Once you stop talking, how many milliseconds do we want the compressor to wait until it allows the volume to cross the threshold again? Leaving this at 0 Also a very bad idea. This means that the volume will jump up and down between each word you say, and that doesn't sound very good either. Absolutely do not set both to 0. In general, you always want your release to be longer than your attack. And I find a setting of about 40 milliseconds for attack and about 150 milliseconds for the release to be the sweet spot. And here are my own settings. You can pause the video and copy these if you want. Here's one final tip. If you want to test how it sounds in practice, here's a great way to do it. Hit start recording, put on some banging tunes, and read your settings out loud. Then change them a bit and read those new settings out loud as well. Do this a few times, stop the recording, and then go listen back to it. Now you can hear what your settings sound like and know what they were at the time, so you can implement the ones you find work best for you. Hey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Or don't, I don't give a. If you found this video helpful in any way, and if you have really poor taste in entertainment, consider following me on Twitch. Links in the description. Peace out.